You are listening to Founders Circle Signal, a Founders Circle and Ad Club Bangalore initiative. 30 minutes with one senior leader from India's advertising, marketing, and communication industry. Not a career retrospective, not a victory lap. A direct conversation about how they think, what they are watching right now, what they believe most of their peers are getting wrong, and where they place their next bet. The audience for this show is the peer community of the people on it. Equals speaking to equals. Hi, I'm Suneet John, and here is today's signal. We have with us today Sushobhan Chaudhary. Sushobhan, I'd like you to introduce yourself to our audience. Tell us about you and your company and what you're doing right now.
Hi guys, my name is Sushobhan Chaudhary, but I think mostly everyone calls me C. Spent quite a bit of time in advertising. Interesting story. I started out as a copywriter, then moved into sales. Started out with Coca-Cola, learned the hard way, and sort of wanted to understand marketing. So went into Times of India, the holy grail of marketing. I think in India, everyone has one stint with Times of India, nevertheless. And then I went into India Today, and then finally did some work in real estate, a bit of tech, and then came back home. So that's advertising. Ever since been into advertising, worked around in a couple of continents, Africa, sometime in the US, Middle East. I thought, I need to do something probably for myself, selfishly, just to explore what I've been doing for the big daddies. Why can't I do it for myself? And, sort of you tend to go through that grind and believe every day, I could have done this probably differently. Had I taken the call, I would have probably advised differently, or I could have taken a leap, or I could have been bold, or I could have taken that risk. And that I could have been never happened. I mean, I just kept on and a slave of salary. And that's what you are. And then eventually I said, enough, let's do it. So set up AHA. And ever since, I've set up a few more ventures. But AHA has been the mothership. And the reason to set up AHA was, one, to be honest, to own something, my own, but not to say, hey, by the way, I run an advertising agency. It needs to do something. There are a dime a dozen agencies, and every day there are shops opening. But the intent was very, very clear that I did not want to do anything that had vanity involved in it. So the reason I chose to set up AHA is, one, that I have this thing against awards, nothing against how the industry believes in it or participates in it. But I think I felt that awards doesn't necessarily define you. Have I won some? Yes, I have won some. But do I want to spend 80 grand, 90 grand, a lakh, 2 lakh, 3 lakh on a submission and then say, hey, by the way, I won an award. Will that get me work? So what I felt was AHA needs to be positioned as a solution partner that does work creatively, not an advertising agency per se. And therefore, the intent was look at data, find deep insights, make a difference to the business, help in the bottom line. Again, top line is how much did you really help the company get in this quarter? Makes no sense, because eventually if you're running promos, all of that is cost, right? So how are you helping bottom line, right? Which sort of took us into a space where it meant like we part consulting, but not consulting, handing over a 200-page deck and say, hey, by the way, get it done by someone, right? See, we said, we will help you understand the market. We'll open up the market. We will help you get into spaces which I believe are white spaces, and you can tap into whatever it is under the sun. But at the same time, we'll help you get there. Right? So we initially we did some fantastic stuff. We did We proposed a smart slum project for the Odisha government. We did some initial work for a healthcare company, helping them grow. Initially, we had a lot of success. And then that GDPR came in, people got scared that we can't really manipulate data, we can't have data that is not ours, and so on and so forth. So, all of that scared the hell out of them. And then, we had to obviously pivot. Data still is one of the mainstays for AHA. We use a lot of data to sort of look into things, find spaces, and all of that. So AHA is largely in that space. Do we do other work? Yes, we do everything. So AHA was built as a bridge. So the pivot was we want to become the bridge for what advertising communication is all about, but it needs to lead to profits. Growth is really a broad word, and we sort of counterintuitive. Everything for us is counterintuitive. Like, for example, likes and whatever, doesn't really mean anything for us. Are people commenting? Good, bad, ugly, doesn't matter. Are you getting feedback? Are you getting data? People are engaging. Engagement through what? Active engagement, or is it just passive engagement someone has seen, right? Building the rule of 1990 and a whole lot of other stuff that we've done, right? So going back to the question, introduce yourself. All of this means one thing, that I believe the world is moving into paradigm shift in how consumers interact with brands, how attention is sort of exploited. In that space, how, as a partner, can you create value for your client? That is essentially what is all about. We don't say we are a digital agency, we're a mainline agency, we're an integrated agency, whatever it is, right? We are media agnostic, business first, strategy first, creative company, right? A mouthful, but we tend to. So that's what I tend to lead with my team. And so far, I won't say that we are extremely successful, but we found a niche. People recommend us a lot. And my ambition is not to build another 500 odd people agency. That's not where I have already done that in my life. I'm happy with 20 people, 25 people. As long as they are sharp, they can deliver that value. I'm happy with that.
That's a fantastic introduction. And the fact that a lot of people talk about integration, they talk about expertise and, focusing on one thing and driving output. So if you look at the industry as a whole, there is definitely a shift over the last few years across the board. And it's not just with smaller agencies that are nimble, but you also see larger, mid and large format global network agencies that are sort of coming around and looking at how they can improve or create value and truly becoming partners to clients and brands, right? There is obviously a lot of thinking and discipline and thought process that you have put into envisioning this company. It also stems from your own discipline within yourself. So therefore, what is the discipline that you've built into your own thinking that you have not been able to build into your company?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. And I'll tell you, we are extremely flawed. And I love that fact that we are flawed, because honestly, I mean, every day you learn something and you want to solve that, right? But what I feel is that the space that we are in, chaos works because it sort of unlocks a whole lot of stuff. Right. And one of the discipline that I have attempted to build, we are a very small outfit, right? We are not where we can sort of keep an HR and then do multiple programs and then have SAP in the internet to do a whole lot of stuff. We don't do that, right? So we are very flat. We don't have hierarchies, all right? Um, and that's one reason where decision making flows faster, right? So we have a policy that even if it's an intern writing a script and the script seems to have the merit and whatever it is, it will be presented, all right? So there is no rule that finally the creative director or the chief creative officer or the ECD will take a call whether I want to do it or not. No, you will present, and that intern will present himself or herself, right? So if you've been assigned a brand, you are in front of the client presenting it, period, right? So that's how it is. But the discipline that I have attempted to build, but somehow I'm still struggling with it is that I should not be the bottleneck. All right. Things should not come to me and get stuck. All right. Where does that come from? That comes from the fact that if you come back and ask me that, is this right? Which means that your conviction on what you're creating or what you're selling or what you're proposing or, the core of it itself is weak. You're not sure. You can't defend it. Right. And therefore you want validation. Right. And I think that needs to be, I mean, why I did that is essentially because I saw that throughout my life in every organization that one will go and ask, do you think this is right? Why do you need to think this is right? Do you believe that you understand this problem? Do you believe that this solution solves that problem? And do you have the conviction that if I were to do that, I can chase, go after it and have that solve? Why do you need my validation? But, we are all creatures of habits, right? So unless you're trained that way, was I this way when I was their age? Probably not. I was probably the same. But over a period of time, having worked in different countries, different continents, different cultures, different processes, I think one thing that I've really understood is that own it. Screw up, but still own it. Because when you screw up, you still learn. When you ask for validation, you're not learning. Then you would say, hey, by the way, I proposed. So I think that is still WIP. I have not been able to cascade it down to the system wherein they can take a call and say, I will run this. You don't have to worry.
Correct. With the focus of doing work that drives outcome, right, and not output, with the freedom for people to make their mistakes, right, as long as they own it, of course. How then do you ensure that there is good work, or how then will you define what good work is?
I have a simple measure for it. Don't do pretty work. Do work that moves the needle, right? We tend to believe that whatever we have done as the first design and presented to the client, that's the best. And there is no room for feedback. And the client comes back and say, but they don't know anything. Yeah, what is this bullshit? They want the logo to be bigger. I mean, see, the whole point is we are, and I'll not be very critical. I mean, there are some fantastic people who are very, very evolved on our side and they understand clients very well. No two ways about it. But I think a large part of that is not being able to understand what the market reality is. And therefore, from where are you seeing this? How far are you seeing this from? In what circumstances are you seeing it? In terms of what is your environment? Is there just one thing or there are multiple things? And would you be able to see that? And therefore, would you have the patience to read through that? Where are you reading it? At an airport or are you reading it at a lounge or whatever it is, right? So I'm saying the point is the context matters and therefore the function of that creative or that solution has to ensure that it delivers. So don't do pretty work. I mean, pretty is given. You need to have aesthetics built into it because it needs to, sort of respect the brand, the DNA, the character, the personality, the archetype, whatever it is, right? But it has to work. And therefore, the filter that you need to apply given the context, does it work? Don't present if you know that it's not working, question yourself. So for us, it's a very simple system. Does it work? If you're like, even when we design a small little shelf talker, I mean, you'll put this beautiful girl and then write the text this small. What are you saying with that shelf talker? If you're trying to say the pretty girl itself will draw the consumer onto my shelf, so then defend it. But if you're saying no, they will come because you're saying my product has 30% more niacinamide and that is what will bring the guy to pick it up. Then say that. Don't do pretty then. You know what I mean? So the filter is very simple. I mean, that's how I sort of work and it has worked so far.
So, what's interesting about that is that there is your belief or the agency's belief in what is good and what is right, and based on a certain set of exposures and beliefs and systems and research, etc. There is also a lot of input that comes in from the client who are also doing their own research, etc. And somewhere between the two of them is the customer, right? And the customer is not as complicated as we would like them to believe. They're very simple at the end of it, right? Do you inspire trust? Does it look like a brand? It's the same thing. You look at Tata's, anything coming out of Tata's, by default, it comes with a chapa, right? It's a Tata product, therefore it must be good, right?
Probably used to be, not anymore. I mean, if I were to say, I mean, after away, I see a complete dilution of that brand. But yes, I know what you're saying. I mean, there's a synonymity to what the brand has stood for.
It has come from that. So, therefore, then when you have these three different and very strong personalities, the agency on one hand, the brand owners and the marketers on the other hand, and the consumer, right? Not all of it is always right. Not all of them are always right, right? How then do you deal with uh, something that you know is wrong for the brand?
Very interesting. See, I'll tell you how I have resolved it. And again, not by reading books, not by going into podcasts like this and say I heard it there. But I'll tell you how. So we go by this logic. So there is this simple philosophy that I use. Stand in front of the mirror and ask yourself, do you know enough about this? If the answer is no, then learn about it. So I follow one simple process throughout, rule of elimination. You have 6 ideas. Don't try and say, I love all those 6 ideas. Be the devil's advocate and say, the ones that I believe, despite the fact that I love it, be the devil's advocate and say, I need to eliminate that. Okay, 6 में से कितना निकला? अच्छा, 3 निकला. Now, from there, go and understand what each does, understand where you are missing whatever it is, as long as out of 100 you score 70, 72, it's worth. Nothing is perfect, right? So the rule of elimination. Second is to say, do you know enough about this? No, I don't. Then go learn about that. How? And which is why what we do to a large extent works. Like, for example, when we do packaging design, I'm just taking one example. When we do packaging design, the planners don't give a deck and tell the design team, this is what you need to do. It is not allowed. Every designer has to go to the market. So when we give a deadline, we get a deadline in a way that the time for the design team to go into the market and themselves look at what is happening onto the shelf and then come back and say, I saw what is happening. I see the chaos. I see the method. I see how it works. And therefore, what you're suggesting in that, I will have either the know-how or the intelligence or the learning to defend it or to challenge it, right? No gut. Obviously, I still believe 90% intelligence and 10% gut. We need to have that because no business is built entirely on data. There is also that feeling that I feel that this bikega, ye consumer lega. I mean, trust this will. And it has happened, and it will keep happening. But the point being that when you're designing something, don't do because someone said it. Are you? And therefore, in this question, what have I done? I have taken that decision on my part as an agency to say that I have learned, I have understood, despite the fact that we did not have that learning, and giving you this. By the way, we have left a margin of error or learning, which we want to accept from you as a client, right?
Correct.
And that's how partnership should essentially work. But the point is, at the center of it, which is the sweet spot, is the consumer. And the consumer is what you're always chasing. You have business because the consumer buys. Agency has
Right.
business because the client is giving business because the consumer is buying, whatever it is, right? So
Yep.
ultimately, it's the consumer. Do you understand that consumer or not?
Correct.
And
So,
that's your rule.
it boils down to keeping the consumer or being consumer centric to begin with. So you're not
Absolutely.
creating work for the agency to win awards or for recognition. You're not creating work that just satisfies a client and gets a tick mark of approval, but you're actually creating work that resonates with the end customer in a manner that he wants it, right? And that basically leads to a
And
question.
works. Not how he wants
Absolutely.
it, but works.
Absolutely. So what you're doing is advertising that works, broadly speaking, without
Forget about advertising. Solution that works. It may not be
work.
advertising per se, it could be anything. You know what I mean?
Correct. So as with any organization and as with any agency, there is always leakage, right? And there's always, while all of us attempt to provide value and create value, but we also have areas within the organization that leak value, that don't finally go out to the market with that value, right? So, in your experience, as per your observations, where do you think agency businesses are leaking value today?
Original thinking. Clearly
And you
original
think
thinking.
that's coming because of the introduction to AI, and
Not
they've
necessarily.
offset
I
that.
mean, the internet has entered our life. I think a large part of that problem, not just advertising, leakages happened in any creative field. It's just that we have sort of wrapped it in logic and rationale to say, okay, this is 4 beats per minute. It has the same chords. This is as per the logic of that chord, and the song can sound similar. Yes, I mean, there's a beautiful video that Charlie Puth, the composer and the singer,
Oh,
has, and everyone should. He in one session shows that how 7 songs, which are all Billboard top number one or whatever it is, have the same damn chord and the same BPM,
you're right.
right? So my point is, do we then say that every idea is original and no idea can be original because someone has thought through it? Go back to day zero. Where did that idea come from? Day
Yeah.
zero was zero, no? So why
Yep.
can't be that today it's day zero? I mean, the point is that that's where I think, and the best example for that today is Godrej Industries. I had written a small piece on it. I think it's very lazy work. I mean, just to say that, you know what I mean, that
The logo.
GI identity, right? So my point is that don't say we were aware of it. I mean, accept, yes, someone must have said, I like this. Yeah, someone must have just picked it up and no one realized that this is not original. Whatever it is, I think that's where now, since it has happened, now I'm giving you a very simple scenario. This has happened within Godrej. So it's their internal creative entity, right? Disco and whatever it is. Imagine this were to be one of the network agencies, right? Now, can you imagine any of this being sort of watered down, both client and agency sitting together and say, okay, you know what, ask your legal team to figure out with Gorilla how to deal with that. We'll
No,
throw in some
it
money
would
and
just end with someone getting sacked, very simply.
not someone getting sacked, you will get sacked plus the agency, and if it's a massive error, you'll be asked to pay. You as a so my point is, I took another example to show you leakage is happening like this, where and I'm not going to blame it entirely on the agencies per se. Why? Because everything is as of tomorrow, right? You can't have everything as of tomorrow. So someone is saying, hey, by the way, we can't piss off the client, big paying, whatever, our revenue is dependent on that, and so on and so forth, which is why we need to get this done. Where will you get this done from? And therefore, you're relying on things going deep onto the 10th page, but someone will find out one day. And that is so I think it is not a problem in isolation. Leakage is not happening because we are choosing a shortcut. Leakage is happening because there is inadvertent pressure, and that is creating a cascading effect, and a lot of other things. I mean, yes, laziness, be honest, laziness is also one big aspect. So yeah, I mean, I think that is originality, core thinking that has become, and now with, like you said, has AI done it? Such beautiful. I mean, everyone has become copywriter, not copywriters, sorry, content writers, right? I still believe, and digressing, you cannot be a copywriter by using AI. You just cannot be. All right. You can be a content writer, but you cannot be a copywriter, right? But
Yeah.
that has happened. So yeah, I mean, going back to your question, this is where I see. I mean, I may not have thought through this very well, but I feel that that's where one of the main areas of leakages are happening.
So if you were to look at the market today, right, over the last 2 years with the LLMs, with AI, with GEO, all of those things happening, right? There is a huge pressure on agency founders and leaders to grow the bottom line, to deliver, right? So it's not just get more business, it's also scale within the business. What kind of pitch do you typically stay away from? Or what is the kind of pitch that you have stopped participating in? And why?
Um, Number one, I don't have a straight answer for that because one, in the last 10 years, do I believe that we are on the same page? Do I believe that they understand that for this, I'm not going to spend money, but I still can't compromise on whatever it is? And at the same time, the agency believes, do they respect our time? Do they us? Do they respect our thinking? And so on and so forth, right? The moment it comes to that, then you know that there is a fracture. And I stay away from all pitches. So I do not pitch. And if I am pitching, then I'm pitching for something that I genuinely believe these issues will not happen. I may probably not make money, but I do that for the sake of um, a badge value. Like I would love to work for UNESCO or WHO or one of those organizations, right? Because one, you would get to do great work. Number one. Number two is that they are looking for a partner in neutrality where they believe they can work with, given that the thinking is great, given that they have a great team, given whatever it is, right? So you're not coming with a preconceived notion. It's a contractual 2 years contract, 3 years contract, and you know that you're going to work for that period. So number one, I don't pitch. If I pitch with a fee. If they don't give a fee, even if it's an honorarium, this is a little bit that I want to, okay, fine. I don't pitch if there are more than four agencies. If there are, I straight away say, no, I'm not willing. If there are more than 5 to 7 agencies, I don't do that. All right. Does it mean I'm being stupid or does it mean that I'm being myopic? Maybe. But I feel that, okay, here is the thought. I have sent you my credentials. I've told you I have me close to 30 years of experience. My agency has 10 years of experience. I've worked with A, B, C, D, E, F, G from Unilevers of the world to so on and so forth, right? Here is the output of my work. What else do you need for me to tell you that I am capable? What is it?
So, would
What is it
you?
that you need?
So, let me answer that. All right. And both of us have done multiple network agencies. We founders more or less around the same time. At the end of the day, one of the concerns that a brand has is the agency's ability to understand their business and to empathize with their problem, right? And therefore, that is actually the truth behind the pitch. Now, not all pitches are created equally, and not all clients are equal, and not all those that call for a pitch are doing it for the right reasons. But
Mm.
that aside, right? The ones that truly matter and the ones that I think you and I love working with, right, are the ones that are actually looking for an agency that is a partner that will commit to an outcome, that will deliver or collaborate with their internal teams to fulfill a business objective or multiple business objectives, right? So the point that I'm making is that sometimes you've got to go with your hunch. I was having a chat with Nirmalya Sen, right? He was the ex CEO of Havas and he runs his own outfit now, right? And there were things during that conversation that truly resonated and said, hey, you need to have empathy for that and you need to keep that in mind. But what's interesting is that both of you have said the same thing, right? You don't pitch unless there is a sense of accountability, that there is a sense of having a client on the other end that is going to be fair and honest and truthful, right? And I think that basically is where it lands.
It is. I mean, coincidentally, we worked together. We were in TVWA back in the day. And a large part of my thinking, while I've worked in multiple agencies, a large part of my thinking has been shaped by the principle of disruption, right? A very, very simple framework. Anyway, just to sum up, I mean, why do we not pitch? Imagine, and I'm going to go back to the relationship that TBWA has had with Apple. Imagine someone asking Lee Clow, show me the number of clients that you've worked in this space back in the day. Imagine back in the day in 74, whatever, 72, you're trying to give Apple a repertoire of brands that you worked with who could have done that kind of work. Which is why I'm saying that not everyone will know everything under the sky. But the ability for this breed, this tribe, which is advertising people, creative people, to understand problems, distill that, and create creative ideas out of it, whether it's through irreverence, whether it's through whatever it is, right? Like, for example, the story of FCUK, it is irreverence, right? And that's how it's stuck. But I mean, or whether it's a fable, I don't know. I mean, we'll figure out. But the point that I'm trying to make is that ultimately you're trying to say that, hey, by the way, they've done some great work. I get a good feed. Why don't I meet them over a discussion or a coffee or whatever it is? Make your judgment that way. Why are you asking them to spend their time for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, come and present, and then at the end of the day, we've decided to go with? Why? Because their thinking was fresh. Come on. I mean, we are separate people. I mean, I could have a light bulb moment today and not have it for the next 10 days. But that does not mean I'm an idiot. So I don't think that is the way to measure or evaluate. So I think, yeah. So coming back to why don't I pitch? Because I feel that it's not fair. Yeah, I don't feel that people put in that much of effort to really judge. They just, I'll not go into speculation as to why they do that, but I feel that I might as well spend those 3 weeks in doing something else than pitching.
Correct. Absolutely. So I'm going to extend this and ask you something which I think naturally flows, right? Which is that agency truth that everybody agrees with in public conversation, but you think is false or that you would like to push back on?
Oh, we love to work for growth.
Would you like to unpack that a little bit for us?
Oh gosh, that's going to send me into a very big. So, any given day, I mean, search, go to their homepage or go to the website, and somewhere you will see tucked in to say that we help you grow. Everyone will say that we did this, grow, blah blah blah, and then you go back and ask, do you really know what's the bottom line of this company? Has this campaign really worked? Has that sustained? Is every work? Like, for example, I have decided to not do social media anymore.
Okay.
While it hurts a lot, it is a huge revenue for us. But it's just very frustrating to see that what are you doing that if it is not leading you to your online channel, if it is not aiding in your D2C, if it is not helping you in conversion, if it is not, you're not measuring simple fundamentals of brand lift. Just do a campaign that allows you to measure the brand lift. All you're doing is 12 posts in a month. From that, 4 videos, pretty looking, sexy videos, blah, blah, blah. And that's about it. Right. And then eventually someone says, because, you have a shelf life, you want to move to another company for a better pay. Someone else comes and says, "Oh, what have you guys done for the last 2 years, 3 years? What is this? What is this?" So the point is that then, as an agency, you don't have a way to say, "Oh, by the way, he told us we didn't do this." So the point is, you are always fighting that battle. So point is, are you genuinely delivering growth? Growth in what sense, right?
Yeah.
It means bottom line, as simple as that. It needs to help them grow their bottom line. How can advertising grow their bottom line? I mean, you need to have certain controls to grow their bottom line, right? You don't have those controls to grow their bottom line. So why are we saying that? You know, so the point is that while we wish to say that, and which is why I wanted to move out and deliver that bottom line, not a top line, right? And I think that is one conversation we need to have openly, to say, if we are genuinely helping them grow, then own something. A co-founder of mine in another business runs a e-com platform for the client, and he owns that. He developed it. The everything in that platform is designed, coded, developed. So therefore, he knows how he wants to sort of move around things to be able to deliver that growth, right? And that's true growth. And in that, whatever you do is what you own, right?
Correct. Tell me something, SC. What there's the next generation of agency leaders? What do they understand of this business that our generation doesn't?
So I'll tell you, I've had a very interesting session with a young girl from the US, an Indian girl. She was, she's in the process of setting up her own business in the non alcoholic beverage space. And she took me through her thinking and the audience. So the truth is, what I mean, they say that Gen Z, Gen Alpha, they're drinking less, so alcohol has come down, blah blah blah, and therefore they're moving into things that one give them that opportunity and the feeling that they are enjoying the evening, but not with alcohol. Right. So fun minus the booze, but they still want to hold something interesting. So what she's doing is, she's bringing in South Asian flavors, tamarind and mango and this and that and all that very interesting stuff, right? With chili, with all of that, guava with chili and all of that interesting stuff, and pushing it to the South Asians plus the surround, which is your white friend, your whatever friend, and so on and so forth, right? So when she took me through her thinking, the layers that she's peeled into the subculture as to how these people are sort of moving, changing in real life, the way they talk, the way they think, the way they look at colors, the way they appeal to things. I think our age, there is definitely a massive gap. There's a massive gap, right? And I would like to believe in Aha, I am the senior most. All right. And I am by far the youngest in my head, for various reasons. Fact that I travel so much, I worked in so many places, I keep in touch, so I consume social media like crazy. I am probably in a day on Instagram, on Facebook, on all of these platforms at least 4 hours, 5 hours, right? So I am bookmarking stuff, I'm consuming stuff, I'm subscribing to stuff, I'm reading things and stuff like that. And yet it took me by surprise the way she thought, she was thinking, she was putting things together, and she not being from the creative side of of the industry, being able to do that scares you because you know that that part of the world or that part of the sort of audience, you really need to understand. It's not that simple way to say, hey, by the way, this is what will appeal to them. There are layers and layers and layers, and you have to live it to be able to address that. So I think it is imperative that we recognize, we acknowledge the fact that the world is changing, and it is just like our parents and theirs and so on and so forth. Every generation has moved, and every generation tend to believe that the previous generation was dumber than the one, but I think it's the reverse. But anyway, but um, but um, but no, I mean, I acknowledge the fact that I need to learn. I need to acknowledge that they have a point of view, and that point of view may not conform to the. So how I mean, we come from a generation where there are certain structures that were,
Yeah.
we used to do that, but they understand that intuitively. And that is where I think we need to acknowledge that we need to bring in these new age thinkers, creators, who will also make us richer in experience. I think we need to quickly acknowledge that. But one of the biggest drawbacks to that is that they are conscious of pay. They will not come at the cost that we used to accept
Mhm.
walking into an agency seat to say, oh my goodness, I am at this and that, the hallowed corridors of this agency. Oh, I'd love. Now everyone is working from home. There are no corridors left anymore. So the payoff is you have to give them money. They will not, otherwise they'll walk.
If you were to give one piece of advice to someone interested in joining your firm, what would that be?
Depth. So the advice is not about joining us. I am the conduit through which you're joining the industry. Tomorrow, you're not married to
Right.
me. You will go somewhere. You don't have a bonded labor contract with me that you'll be there with me perpetually. So the advice is that at that point in time, it should serve the agency's benefit. And eventually it serves you, because the moment you are that, you then create value for us and eventually the client and eventually everything else, right? So it's a value chain. And that value chain only starts with depth. If you don't have depth, you can only do a few things for a couple of years and then it'll start showing. If you do not have depth in whichever discipline that you're getting into, whether it's art, whether it's copy, whether it's planning, whether it's whatever it is, I mean, relentlessly, sort of maniacally chase depth. As long as you have that, I can vouch for it. I mean, you will not face a day where someone will say, "Yaar, kya bakwas kar raha hai? And what is this that you're saying?" You would. It's not about winning an argument. It is about ensuring that you have a win-win. And that win-win will only happen when you know that someone else trusts you and say, I know you will move my business. I know you will help me through this. I know you will solve this challenge. And you can only do that if you have the conviction that I know, or I will find a way, or that depth. So the depth of knowing things, of unraveling things, the curiosity to understand this is beyond me, but I'll still try.
This was today's signal. If something here sharpened how you think, share it with one peer you think should hear it. To suggest a guest, write to the Ad Club Bangalore. I am Suneet John, back in 2 weeks with another voice worth transmitting.